Hello, and welcome to another video in the Blade series. I'm John, and this is Scott. On this week's video, we're going to discuss AI, and how to properly utilize this tool in your everyday life. All joking aside, AI does carry a bit of a stigma around it.
Oh yeah.
Some are frightened of it, and others, like me, see huge potential in that it can improve our everyday lives. With that in mind, Scott, what is generative AI?
Yeah, generative AI, which we'll call GAI in this discussion, because there's all kinds of different types of AI out there. So we're going to talk about the one that people are probably most used to now is generative AI, and that's an artificial intelligence system that can generate new content like text or images or people's voices or people in a video based on data that it's been trained on, which is key because all these AI systems have to be trained on data sets, and we'll talk a little bit later about why that's really important. But you can basically take a analogy like, let's say you're just training your AI on people who live in Chicago. Then you ask your AI, where's the best pizza at? It's going to say Chicago, right? So that's the way the population you train the AI with is really important. So now GAI is a type of narrow or weak AI, and that's just trained for a specific task, like summarize a document, create an image, do a voice, these sort of things. Now, that is the best type of AI that we have today, but there's other types out there that are being worked on. One is general AI that understands, learns, and applies knowledge just like a human does. So human equivalent AI, we could look at that. And then finally, the gold ring for all the people who are developing this is the super intelligent AI, which surpasses human intelligence in all aspects. And all these are still in development. But generative AI we can certainly use today.
Right. It's not the one that's going to take over the world. So,
well, no, probably not. I mean, think about it. It's just generating things off of voice prompts or typing prompts. So it's not going to have a whole huge capability to do much more than that. But again, this is step one in about a 100-step process to get to that super intelligent AI that can basically run power plants and do all this fun stuff just better than a human can.
Yeah. So that leads us into the next question is, why is generative AI considered revolutionary right now?
Well, the thing it is because it gives huge powers into the hands of information workers and really anybody to be able to create new things that didn't exist before. And I know you and I use it a lot, when we're going through legal documents or any sort of document. Maybe it's a 100-page document, and you can just take your AI client and say, summarize that document. And 15 seconds later, you get a list of bullet points, which is great for us. I know we have to digest a lot of information. That helps. So that's really revolutionary. It saves. I can't imagine how much time it actually saves me in a week. I mean, it's probably getting to the point now. It's saving me 1 or 2 hours a week, really, of thinking time when I can just toss it over to, I use the Copilot AI with Microsoft, and toss it over to that and give me what I'm looking for. So that really makes it really effective. So that's why it's revolutionary. It's a brand new tool that everybody can use to create new content that didn't exist before.
Yeah, very cool. So as we're creating this content, one thing that pops into my mind is, what are the potential risks that we're going to see from generative AI?
Sure. GAI, again, you're creating new content. And the AI doesn't have the capability to recognize whether you're doing something for good or for evil. It's agnostic. It doesn't care why you're doing it. So since you're creating new content, you can create misinformation and deepfakes, which we've talked about before, where you have a video of somebody saying things that really looks like them. I know there's a great one of President Obama out there. There's several of them out there that you can take a look at that are really hard to tell whether it's really that person speaking or is it a deep fake. So, and that's a whole other, we could have a whole long discussion about deep fakes and how that works. But that's one of the problems with GAI, because it's giving people without any sort of skill sets really. This has always been capable to be done to a certain extent without AI. They create deep fakes and misinformation. But now GAI makes it a lot more efficient and faster. And you don't really have to have a skill set to do these sort of things.
Yeah, you don't have to have a 3-letter name government agency and a bunch of smart people to do it.
No, exactly right. And it can cause just as much havoc as that a nation state could do.
Yeah, so that's crazy. So
yeah.
I guess that takes us, as always, into the next part. So how can businesses ensure the safe use of generative AI tools in their company?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question, because a lot of different industries are looking at using GAI tools, and really it boils down to just what you would do to secure your normal data. Things like robust security measures, conduct regular audits, and really continuous auditing is really what we need to look at now. We're constantly looking at our systems from a cybersecurity point of view to see what's going on. You also have to stay informed about the latest developments and potential risks out there, and there's different outlets you can do that. I know it's starting to coalesce a little bit where it's not just everybody saying things. You do have some main people out there that are generating this kind of stuff, and they have blogs and more information out there. But a good example, though, that companies may want to look at is what the law industry is doing now with the American Bar Association. They published a formal opinion. It's Formal Opinion 512. You can pull it down if you're interested in it, and it's how GAI should be used in law firms. Now, this is it's a long document, but really it boils down just to a few points. You have to be competent. You have to know what you're doing with your GAI systems, okay? Because really, it goes kind of points to the point where you can't really bill your clients for something to learn, right? You can't bill your clients to learn on this stuff. You have to have competence on it before you offer it or bill for it. These sort of things. Confidentiality always has to be in the forefront for all this information. I know last video we talked about was about a law firm that was breached.
Yes.
This is an example why you have to be so careful with your GAI tools if you're using it to develop, in the law industry, a pleading or some other sort of legal document. So you have to watch out for that. So, this opinion the ABA is given out, really focuses on, what law firms need to do. But really, a lot of the items it discusses really accounts for all businesses. Should do these sort of things. Keep an eye on your confidentiality. Make sure that that people understand the tools they're using. Make sure you have your own internal guidelines on how you're going to use these tools. Now, what I'm going to see, law firms and technology usually outpace other industries.
Right.
They're usually early adopters. These sort of things. So we'll probably see additional industries. Most likely medical. Being leading the way on that, coming up with their own guidelines for this in the future.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be some discussion, like you said, around the policies and procedures, because there have been a couple of examples where we've used like ChatGTP or something like that, where we've asked it a question about confidential information that it shouldn't know, and it's returned some of that information, which means that the business that utilized that AI tool wasn't practicing good data security policies around their AI, or maybe they didn't even know that it could do what it was about to do.
There's been several people have discussed things where AI has started to input information wasn't necessarily part of the idea of what it was going to be trained on. And that could do a lot of things. I mean, number one, it could be confidentiality, but let's say it gets a whole data sets that is all false. So then you're training your AI on false data. So what's your AI going to do? Then it's probably going to have, kind of like we've had, AI having delusions.
Hallucinations.
Hallucinations. It has hallucinations, and it's almost always due to the input of the data. And it kind of goes back to remember Hal in 2001. Why he went crazy.
Don't let them take over.
Exactly. Hal went crazy because he had two different sets of information telling him to do two different things. And same sort of things that can happen with AI today.
So that plays into how does transparency into the AI safety play?
Right. Well, transparency is crucial in AI safety because it builds trust and ensures that, users are aware how it works, because otherwise it's a black box, right? It's spitting out data. Now, what's inside the black box? And that's why transparency is important. We have to be able to open up that black box and see how it's coming up with these answers to the questions that's being offered. So that's why transparency is so important.
Make sure the algorithm isn't doing something hokey.
You never know. And human beings, at this point in time at least, they're smarter than AI and can identify these sort of problems, more efficiently. Later on, we'll probably have an overseer AI that does that for us, but that's a whole other story for another day.
Skippy the Magnificent, for those of you who like the series. So, all right. So why, this is almost a self-answering question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Why is it important to have ethical guidelines for AI development?
Well, sure, and that's part of it, because AI, very, very powerful technology, as we know, and maybe probably will be, in the end, one of the most powerful technologies that human beings will ever really develop. And so that's important, but we have to have these ethical guidelines on how we're going to, develop AI, how we're going to use AI, and, to make sure that it's fair, it doesn't cause harm to individuals or society. Things like transparency, which we just mentioned. What's inside that black box? How does that work? And users should understand how these decisions are made within the black box and be able to get explanations of the AI's behavior. Now that's today, as we're still in kind of development mode, there are still sometimes AI will do things that nobody really understands why. And as it develops, we'll have a better grip on those sort of things. Another thing is fairness. We want to make sure that we train our AIs and develop them in such a fashion that it's going to avoid bias and discrimination. Like the example I gave with the Chicago pizza folks. That sort of thing. If you just train your AI just on, let's say, Latinos that grew up in the Southwest, you're going to get a whole lot different set than if you're training with the entire United States, the entire world, and so on. And that's why a lot of the superpowers, information technology superpowers out there, are really trying to pull as much data as they can from different sources to help train their AIs, because then it has a broader basis. And so, in theory, it should give better answers.
Yeah, more data, better accuracy.
You'd hope. So it uses most of the time, but let's hope. And accountability, same sort of things that anyone who develops an AI that causes problems, there needs to be some accountability for those people. You can't just take a sophisticated AI program, throw it out there, have it cause havoc, and not assume that you're going to get in trouble for something. Right. Privacy is another one we mentioned. AI systems need to treat users and their data with the same sort of privacy as we all do, that work in information systems and so on. So these are the things we have to do. Safety and security. You have to make sure our AI systems are safe and secure, make sure that people can not misuse the technology, and also protect any vulnerabilities. We really haven't talked about it much yet, but AIs are going to be a target for people writing software like worms and Trojans and viruses and all these sort of things, just to attack the AI. Yeah. So you'll have an AI on AI type of situation eventually, which is, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But these sort of things that you need to watch out for, safety and security. Also, human-centric design. All the AI programs that are out there being designed and developed today need to be designed to augment human capabilities, like in the GAI, where it's helping us create new content, these sort of things. And rather than replacing human judgment. AI is an assistant. It's not something that's going to make all the decisions in a power plant, for example. There will always be, in theory, a human overseer on that, at least at the development the point we're at today.
Yeah, and that's, you and I have talked about that, where it's, as of right now, like my daughter is about to go into college, and we were talking about things you should avoid. And so, where you had a room full of creative people typing, now you might have 5 lead creatives with the AI taking the place of the room full of creatives.
Absolutely.
But it's not going to do it by itself, because it could still hallucinate.
Right.
So.
There's a lot there. I mean, you have to also think about how you train it and all these different sort of things. But you're right. You're going to have a specialized AI that can sit there and do those sort of thing under human supervision.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So as they're developing these systems, how do the developers need to address the bias issues that come out of AI? You've already alluded to it.
Yeah, that's a big thing, because you have to put a lot of planning into how you're going to train your AI. And developers can address the issue of bias by using diverse and representative data sets. So making sure that you're not just using the Chicago suburbs as your data set, for example. You want to have it being very diverse and very representative of what you're trying to do. Audit your AI systems for bias, and that's a great thing. We talked about security auditing, but they also audit for this. So essentially, the developers would ask questions to probe the bias of that AI, and then be able to alter the training sets to either change it, plus or minus, just kind of like turning the dials and tuning it in, right? With that sort of thing. So that's something that you can do, and also make sure that the algorithms that we implement, the formulas, take into advantage this fairness, and making sure that we have a diverse group for training, for example.
Yeah, and so not just auditing for the bias, there also needs to be regular audits about the AI safety.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you have to do that because you won't know, and that's kind of a cybersecurity function. We'll see how this all plays out. Who's going to be responsible for what? But doing regular audits on an AI system, it's important because you want to identify and mitigate potential risk. Because again, it's a software product, just like Microsoft Windows or any other product you can name. Mm-hmm. There are security risks in it today that not everybody has found yet.
Right.
Bad guys find them and then use them to blow up your system or take over your data or things like that. Same things that can happen to AI. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's important for us to stay on top of it and making sure we're mitigating any of these risks, and we're making sure that we're compliant with our ethical guidelines that we have in place, and we want to maintain the integrity of our AI systems through this.
Yep, and that's so as they're doing that, there's. I guess the next thing is, how do the users stay informed on the latest developments in the AI safety world? Because there's a lot happening.
Yeah, there's a lot happening, and there's a lot of different voices out there, and you get different opinions and such. I think that's starting to coalesce a little bit more, but users can stay informed about latest developments is by following some industry news. Find a newsletter or a site, a blog site that covers AI in your particular industry, and keep an eye on what's going on there. Talk to your colleagues, people in the industry, see what they're doing, and so on and so forth. There's also research and publications out there from reputable sources. You may have to initially have to do a little digging around to see which sources best match up what your interests and your company, right? Because there's all kinds of different ones for doctors' offices and law firms and manufacturing and so on. Try to find one for your niche and follow it and stay on it because it's a fast-moving industry, as you know, and it's something even technologists have problems keeping up on. Yeah. So that's why you want to try to specialize. Try to find something that just points to you, your interests in your industry, and follow it there.
Yeah. And so, as it is with most new technologies, it's about using common sense, following best practices. And I'd also like to say, if this stuff scares you, make sure you reach out to your trusted technology partner. If you don't have one, please reach out to us. I mean, we'd love to help. Everybody's kind of getting started on this, but we'd love to help guide you. Scott, thanks again for your expertise.
Oh, my pleasure, John, as always.
Thanks to all of you for watching. This is John and Scott from Blade. Take it easy.